Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The responsibility of preaching Islam is imposed on every Muslim in the various capacities that he finds himself in. So therefore it is essential that he must distinguish between these capacities and not impose on himself a responsibility which does not belong to him. Thus, for example, the scholars of this ummah, the Muslim rulers, similarly people who were the common man or the common masses, and similarly the progeny of Abraham. These are the various sections in which our whole ummah is divided, and one must not take on the responsibility which does not belong to that category. So in other words, the responsibility of a prophet of God or a Rasul of God is entirely different vis-a-vis preaching, as for example from the responsibility of a scholar of Islam. So therefore it is essential that this distinction has to be made at all costs. Now in this regard, there is a misconception which at times arises and engulfs a Muslim preacher, and that is that he starts to think of himself as a scale of justice. He thinks that whatever he says is absolutely in accordance with what the Almighty has said, and therefore people should not go against him, and his followers must accept whatever he says at all costs, and they must not disobey him. They cannot go against him, because whatever he is saying on as a person who is speaking on behalf of God. This is a grave misconception. The only people who are allowed to say so are the prophets and the messengers of God. Only they are allowed to say that whatever they are saying on behalf of the Almighty, because this is what actually the situation is. Whatever they say on behalf of God is something which cannot be differed with. One cannot oppose it in any way, because it is something which God Himself is saying. This particular status is only occupied by messengers and prophets of God. Ordinary human beings who take up the task of preaching, who make a party, for example, and call people towards Islam and try to reform their ways, they cannot in any way make this claim. And if they do so, they would be committing something which is entirely wrong. And they must realize that it is only regarding the prophets of God that this can be, that this is something which the Quran has said. So therefore, there is a verse in the Quran which says that people who oppose the prophets of God because of this nature, they should be aware that some grave punishment might befall them. And in the case of the Prophet Muhammad, at one place the words used are فَلْيَحْذِرِ الَّذِينَ يُخَالِفُونَ عَنْ أَمْرِهِ أَن تُصِيبَهُمْ فِتْنَةٌ أَوْ يُصِيبَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. Let those who disobey His orders beware, lest some affliction or some woeful scourge be visited upon them. So therefore, this is something which is should remain clear in the minds of all preachers, that they cannot regard themselves to be the scale or the standard of right and wrong. They are of course not the standard of right and wrong. They are people who are human beings, and they can err in this regard. So therefore, what for them is the proper way is that they should say that whatever they are preaching and whatever their understanding regarding Islam is, this is something which to them is absolutely the truth. However, there is always a possibility that there can be some error or some mistake in it which they might realize later on. So this is the proper attitude that they should adopt. They must never think that they have become the standard of truth or the standard of justice in any case. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات.